Wiley has been permanently banned from Twitter. At first they banned him for I think a couple of days, but now his ban is permanent, and to the accusations of anti-Semitism he has responded by saying, "I'm not racist." And he might not be, but what he said definitely was. And it reminded me of when Ron Atkinson pulled a clanger and off air, so he thought, but into a microphone, made a very, very racist remark about a black footballer. And then when asked about it, he said, "Oh, I'm not racist. There's no one less racist than me. Look at all that I've done for black people, black footballers throughout my career," which is true. But somewhere in the back of his mind, in his subconscious, was the racist remark that he made. And somewhere in Wiley's conscious is anti-Semitism. And it is racist. People have come out and said, well, how can you be racist against a religion? Being Jewish is not a race, it's a religion. But you can be of a Jewish background and not be religious at all. You can be an atheist Jew. In fact, I would guess perhaps the majority of people in the world that identify as Jewish might not actually be practicing their religion or believing in their faith, but these people could still be victims of anti-Semitism. And when Hitler tried to annihilate Europe's Jews and massacred them, he wasn't doing it because of their religious beliefs. He was doing it because of the perception that they were of an inferior race. They were non-Aryan, and that their blood would somehow pollute the pure Germanic gene pool. And also because Hitler associated Jewish people with communism and the USSR that had so damaged Germany in the First World War. So it wasn't because of their religious beliefs that Jewish people were genocided and victims of anti-Semitism. It was because they were perceived to be of a different, inferior race, and all the other anti-Semitic tropes that go with it. And Wiley has reminded us of several of them this week, and he claimed that there are two sets of people that nobody wants to challenge: hashtag Jewish and hashtag KKK, Ku Klux Klan. So he's putting Jewish people on a parallel with the Ku Klux Klan, who actually hate Jewish people. They're even more anti-Semitic than Wiley himself. But I think we can criticise the KKK. I think in the last few months, what's happened with Black Lives Matter and everything that went on in America and the worldwide protests, haven't we all been calling out not just the KKK but racism in general? And so we should continue, and whether that's anti-black racism, anti-Jewish racism, or as some people like to call it, anti-Semitism, and we'll come back to that word shortly, we should be against all these forms of prejudice, discrimination, racism. They're all wrong. And I would say perhaps they're all equally wrong, but some stand out more than others because of the history, because of the recent history. In this case, it's only 70 years or so since the Holocaust, and groups that have been targeted for their particular belief or their particular ethnic origin will feel more sensitive when attacked online. People often come out after incidents like this with a lot of whataboutery and say, oh, what about if he said that about white people? Would it have been treated the same if he had repeated anti-white rhetoric? And at some points he did, but white people in the last century have not been genocided because they were white, or not that I'm aware of. If you have a different theory on that, please let me know in the comments. But white people as a group in general have not been targeted for a genocide, whereas Jewish people have been, whereas black people in general, although you could say not all black people, suffered at the hands of racism, apartheid and segregation in the United States. So these groups that have been targeted, that have been attacked in racist or anti-Semitic ways, you can understand how people from those groups would feel more threatened than, for example, if it was anti-white rhetoric, or I don't know, people with ginger hair. There's many different groups that have never been as set upon as compared with these other minorities that have been attacked in the past. But let's have a look at what else he said. He suggested that Jewish people should be shot. He used a slang term that meant Jewish people should be shot or murdered. So he is inciting racial hatred. So I don't think there's any argument for why he shouldn't be banned. But there are a few questions about the reason why he was banned. And let's have a look at some other things he said. Listen to me, Jewish community. Israel is not your country, I'm sorry. And he appears to imply later on that actually, I mean, there's an argument to say, well, we know the history of that country, and the Palestinians have a rival claim to the land in what's known as Israel-Palestine. But he's not sticking up for them. He's actually suggesting that the land of Israel belongs to black people. And it seems to me as if he's been hanging around with the likes of the Hebrew Israelites, whom I have met on several occasions. Some of them were friendly, some of them were quite hateful. And there is certainly an anti-white rhetoric that comes from the so-called black Hebrew Israelites, but there is also virulent anti-Semitism as well. And it's a strange kind of anti-Semitism or Jew hatred, because it's wanting to delegitimize Jewish people's claim to being the children of Israel and say, no, you are not Jews, we are the real Jews. It's almost kind of like a strange jealousy. So he wrote, Israel is ours, apparently referring to the black community, and described that as black history lessons for today. I think this guy was really in the middle of a meltdown. And we've all had them, but this was a particularly bad one. He said Jewish people control business, and he said that, here's a good one, elsewhere he switched focus and said, I can see and feel the Arab control presence around Africa and I don't like it. Looks like a big old setup. In fact, I know the setup. Europeans and Arabs have got Africa in a headlock. Maybe he was banned because he had a go at the Arabs. Maybe we've got it all wrong. Maybe it was an Arab that runs Twitter who got upset when he started saying it's the Arabs and the Europeans who have got Africa in a headlock. And maybe this is what they meant by anti-Semitism, because of course the Arabs are Semitic as well. Maybe maybe we've got it all wrong. Maybe it's because he said something rude about the Arabs and the Europeans. But no, I don't think that's why Wiley got kicked off of Twitter. I think I found it here. Later on, he also addressed the coronavirus pandemic, saying, F the mask and virus, it's all BS. It's an effing lie. Now, you know, if you upload any video to YouTube that contravenes the World Health Organization's advice, the official line on coronavirus, if you say anything that deviates from that script, you'll have your video pulled down straight away by Google. So maybe that's where Wiley went wrong. Maybe it wasn't the anti-Semitism or the anti-Arab sentiment or having a go at the Europeans. Maybe it's because he said, F the mask, it's all a lie. I don't know. But that would be another fair reason, well, wouldn't it, for removing him from his Twitter account.